I'm Fred Wilkinson, Chief Editor of the National Provisioner. This morning I'm speaking with Phil Lempert, known to many as the supermarket guru. Phil is a longtime industry observer and analyst for food trends and supermarket trends as well. Phil, thank you for joining me today. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Fred. It's a pleasure.
To get things started, I know a key factor at retail in all categories today is price inflation. Could you speak a little bit about how that has been impacting consumer choices in the meat department?
Sure. Well, when you take a look, number one on everybody's shopping list is saving money. There's no question about that. In fact, Deloitte just produced a study, about a week or so ago, talking about the stress levels and what's important in the supermarket. And number one is price. So when people are going to that meat case, what they're looking for is the cheapest cuts that they can. In fact, in that same survey, what they found is way low on the bottom is now sustainability. It's dropped about 19 points from pre-pandemic levels, sustainability, non-GMO, all of those attributes that we've been talking about forever, they're now at the bottom of the list for shoppers. Shoppers just want to get in and out of the store as quickly as they can and save as much money as they can.
Given the challenging pricing environment at retail, have there been any products in the meat case that have been kind of surprise standout performers?
Well, what continues to baffle me a bit is the plant-based movement. Certainly, that's just tiny as represented against beef and pork and chicken, but we're continuing to see more people try plant-based, even though it's more expensive than some of the animal cuts. So that's been one of the surprises, and I'm just waiting for the bottom to fall even further out. If we look at the stock prices, for example, of some of the companies that are out there, they've really gone downhill. Consumers are still interested in plant-based. They want to try it, but I don't think the bottom has fallen out quite yet.
And again, given the pricing at retail in the current market, how have, say, a higher end grocer such as a Wegmans or Whole Foods or someone like that, how have they handled that in their merchandising in the meat case compared to kind of a more middle of the road store,
Yeah,
like a
Kroger or
Publix?
Albertsons. Yeah.
Yeah, or then even
Yeah.
comparing that to say like a discounter like an Aldi or a store like that.
Well, keep in mind that the store that you go to typically reflects your personality, reflects your household income, reflects who you are as a human being. So when I look at Aldi, what they've gone after probably in the past 3 or 4 years is Generation Z and millennials who are concerned about price, but also very concerned about quality. Their merchandising is, again, keep it as cheap as possible. What Kroger and Albertsons are focused on now is, again, the same thing, as cheap as possible. But when we look at the Wegmans and the Whole Foods of the world and other chains like that, again, their socioeconomic customers are less impacted by the price. Now, everybody wants to save money when they go shopping. There's no question about that. But that customer is a lot less price sensitive than your typical Kroger or Albertsons customer is. So the merchandising from a Wegmans, from a Whole Foods, sure, they're concerned a little bit about price, but also they're really pushing, high quality. They're really pushing sustainability efforts, much more so than your traditional supermarket.
Kind of a long-term product trend across food marketing has been the growth of fresh convenience, value-added items. How have items like that fared in the current inflationary retail environment?
Well, the one standout that I've seen, and there's a bunch of retailers that are now, aging beef. I was just in some stores in Minneapolis a couple weeks ago, and Hy-Vee and Kowalski's and so on, which is not the upper echelon of like Wegmans is. They're somewhere between the Kroger's and the Wegmans. I mean, they're doing really well with their aged beef, which is certainly more expensive. There's no question about that. They're pushing those kind of items. So what we really need to look at again is going back to the customer today wants value. Doesn't mean price only. It means value for their money. So maybe I'm not going to have steak as often as I used to have it, but when I do want to buy that steak, I'm going to go for the more expensive cut, the aged cut, and be more satisfied with that meal.
You mentioned the performance of alternative proteins, plant-based proteins. Um, have there been other health, wellness, dietary trends that have been influencing new product development or marketing in the meat case lately?
Certainly, before the pandemic, what we saw is that movement towards leaner products. But when the pandemic hit, people really got concerned about health and nutrition much more than we've seen in probably decades. People heard all the stories. I need vitamin D. I need more iron. I need more protein. To build up my own immune system to prevent getting COVID, or at least to minimize if you do get COVID, what your body's reaction is going to be. So yes, we have seen more meat products really trying to cater to that immunity, higher protein products than ever before.
Beyond the influence of, well, the current inflationary market and health diet trends, are there any other emerging trends, whether they be specific to protein or elsewhere in the grocery store, that are starting to have an influence on product development or merchandising for meat and protein products?
Well, I think what we're seeing, both from a retailer standpoint, from a farmer and rancher standpoint, from the whole industry, is really trying to educate consumers about why these prices are going up, and being able to talk about, climate change, how that affects the feed that goes into, our animals, the price of that, the availability of that, the war between Ukraine and Russia, how that's affected fertilizer prices, if you would, and fertilizer availability. So we're trying to get that message out there. I think the biggest trend that we're going to see, and certainly the Biden administration has helped this economically, is moving away from these really large meat packing facilities that are in the center of the country that we have to rely on long haul transportation to get to market, and just having smaller meat processing facilities throughout the country so they can be, a couple hours away from the supermarket versus a couple of days away. So those are the messages that are getting out there. And then the other problem we have is the labor shortage and the labor wages going up. So I think what we're going to see in for product development is going to be more artificial intelligence. We're going to see more robotics. We're seeing more robotics. White Castle has now put, the flipper in, I think, 100 of their restaurants, so they don't have to rely on a human being to flip over those hamburgers. I think instead of product development, we're going to see a lot more development as it relates to the manufacturing and the processing of products. I think that's where we're going to see all the money go over the next couple of years, because the climate's not going to get better. The labor shortage is not going to get better. We're down about 120,000 truck drivers, and very few people are waking up in the morning and saying, "Hey, I want to be a truck driver." So as a result of that, I think we've got to first put our money into the infrastructure of animal protein, and then product development will come next.
Well, Phil, thank you very much for taking time to speak with me this morning.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure.